So, since no one is understanding anything, let's do a three-dimensional simulation of the geometries involved in the evaluation of the offside. All the characters are clones, the red and yellow at the bottom are identical both in form and animation. That is, they are always aligned. In yellow shirts there are the defenders. In red are the forwards, one running and the other making a pass. Roles will not be fixed in this simulation. We aligned in order to be able to take references, as they do during the VAR image rendering, two planes parallel to the baseline that projects the parts of the body beyond a reference point. These blues. A plane aligned with the tips of the red player in the middle and the yellow player on the bottom, the twins. The other plane is aligned with the nose, to give the example of the shoulder, since it is not possible to find an exact point to take into account in the shoulder. Or rather I can do it by taking a point from the structure of the 3D model, but at VAR I don't know what they invent as for example on the disallowed goal against Juventus against Como. The exact point of contact with the ball, which I can detect precisely and the VAR cannot, is at frame 24. And then we start our action, and what happens in frame 24? Then this camera is aligned with the plane that you saw earlier with your nose. So let's see what this camera sees. Remember that everything today is aligned between the central player and the outermost player, they are only translated on the x-axis. I will give you a demonstration of this. Now from this camera, despite everything being almost perfectly aligned and the camera is aligned with the noses of these two players, the perspective can be misleading. I can also demonstrate this to you. Since VAR doesn't do that, but I bet I have to be as precise as possible. Now, as you can see, the nose chamber and aligner are aligned. You can also check from the coordinates what I say. In this situation, as we see, this defender keeps both players in play, the foot sticks out a little, while of these players only the hands that are not relevant come out. Do we want to take the alignment of the nose or the foot? Now there is already a problem here. In this simple situation with only 3 players involved, it is more intuitive to understand if you are checking your foot or shoulder. Because, look at what happens if you simply change the reference camera by how much the difference is. I see the faces are aligned and almost the foot is aligned, even if you can see it being a little further ahead. I want to get you to understand that from the same point of reference I cannot evaluate the alignment of several parts of the body. And I can't always know such a large field, with maybe 6 or 7 people involved, which part and body is ahead and by whom. Sometimes they even forget the very existence of a defender. Or rather I know it because I have all the coordinates. I doubt that in the times of VAR they can always know for sure, also for the reasons you will see at the end, which are the center of everything. If I align my feet, I will have a view that absolutely does not make me aware of the fact that this striker and defender behind, who cannot even be seen, are aligned. And the defender in the foreground seems extremely ahead. So in any case there is a problem. I can't from a point of view evaluate the alignment of several parts of the body, as Einstein says. Just kidding. The problem would not arise, but lies in the claim to be able to judge millimeters and pass off judgment as objective. It almost tastes like a scam. You can say that you just need to take the portion later, but it's not always so straightforward. How do you see now the defender in the foreground has his nose back from the attacker and his foot further forward? How am I deducing this? From the fact that the blue aligner plane has 0 coordinates in rotation. The field is rotated by 0 or 90 degrees, so I have a perfect perception of what is parallel or perpendicular to the aligner. The field is a perfect rectangle as well as the lines that compose it. The angles of the corner kick will be 90 degrees. The baselines parallel to each other and to the midfield and area lines. The sidelines parallel to each other and perpendicular to the baseline lines with no margin for error. Do they also make my evaluations with the same precision in reality? But in a real field they have to prove to me that they have a perfectly rectangular field, that is, the angles are 90 degrees. That the longest lines of the field continue straight without widening or narrowing. Speaking of millimeters, because they claim to cancel goals by millimeters. In short, maybe I'm wrong, but I would like to see the demonstration that all Serie A fields have perfectly rectangular fields and lines with the same thickness as always. As well as how the frame of reference is chosen. Do I do a visual demonstration? First of all, this is the camera. From this point of view, I already visually have the perception that the faces are aligned, or the feet. But already look at the perspective effect, how it changes on the hands. Assuming that the reference frame is the right one. Because I can start the action at the time I want and everything changes. Now from frame 24, if I take the camera, which is now turned 90 wheel, it starts to change the perspective. Just 1 degree and I have a different perception. This is only visual, I don't know if it tells you anything. But it definitely tells you something if I take the aligner that is perfectly on the puta of the nose of the attacker and the defender at the bottom. I try to rotate it 1 degree. In this case you can also see by eye that there is a misalignment with the lines of the field. In any case, now the defender in the foreground seems behind the one at the back. This is a bit extreme as an example, but it serves to understand the concept. 1 degree is too much, so I try 0.1. You can no longer see that it is not parallel to the back line, but the two side defenders, one with his foot, one with his nose, seem to come out a little and be aligned. On the Serie A pitches, how is the situation? If I try with 0.05, still the foot and nose seem to come out a little and be aligned. I'm comparing the two defenders now, but the problem is the alignment, not the roll in this case. Tell me if you feel that the aligner is rotated. But do you see how much the offside rating changes? I try to move the central striker to the side until he is also over. But its position has not changed, it is flat to be tilted, and depending on how it is tilted it benefits or disadvantages players depending on their x-coordinate. Please tell us at the VAR their aligner if it is parallel to the baseline, sidelines or what? To billboards? Because as you can see, the slightest variation changes everything. Always remembering that they judge millimeters. Let's try with 0.04, they still seem aligned. With 0.03, 0.02, and even 0.01 it almost doesn't make the situation real. Let's play a little with the coordinates and look at the nose. Moreover, the aligner also has a thickness, albeit minimal. Maybe I'm wrong, but I think it is necessary to explain what the aligner is parallel or perpendicular to. Since the players use the imprecise lines of the field to orient themselves. Unless there is a laser that travels the entire field and hits a detector on the other side. Is the field rectangular? I don't criticize technology and I don't say it doesn't work, but I have serious doubts about the possibility of evaluating millimeters and therefore about the correctness of the decisions taken, that for some penalize and some reward. And what is the point of view used to evaluate several parts of the body, some such as the shoulder without a precise geometry, to make these evaluations? The VAR has to correct obvious errors for centimeters. You can take into account what the linesman saw, right?